Hey there, welcome back. Today we're going to be taking another look at an illustration time-lapse that I put together, and we're going to talk about fan art. I have a complicated history and a complicated relationship period with fan art. A lot of people love it, a lot of people don't like it, I guess, but that's something we'll get into in the drawing. If you're new here, or you haven't subscribed yet, that would be a huge help to me if you like this kind of content, you like animation, illustration, all that stuff. It's all here. But before we get too carried away with all that, let's hop into the drawing. Okay, so we are taking a look at, this is another drawing from, alright, so this is another drawing from Inktober 2018. I was doing a lot, so I started the month with some kind of, Universal style monsters and all that stuff. Had some fun parodies that I was including in that. As I got later into the month, I started inserting myself into popular characters, primarily Disney characters. Right now I'm doing Genie from Aladdin, and just kind of putting my caricature of myself into those characters in a satirical way. Super fun. I had to really learn how to break down the design itself, and then my design, and merging those styles, making it something cohesive. It was a good exercise. But what I really want to talk about, and this is kind of why that whole process of learning, is why I want to talk about fan art, and why maybe you shouldn't do it, or why I don't like to do it. I think plenty of people do it and love it, and I'm not going to tell you don't do something you enjoy doing. But you know, before I seem too hypocritical for doing what is essentially a fan art piece of Genie, I do have a reason to bring up this kind of quandary that has some that has, I guess, some level of, not controversy, but just conflicting opinions about it. So, as far as I can remember, I've never really felt inspired to do fan art. Fan art is, you know, really the act of drawing other people's characters from other properties, other stories that have already been told, and that never really held much appeal to me. I have my own stories that I'm dying to tell, dying to draw, or whatever, and even as a musician, when I was still playing and guitar and writing a lot of music, which I still do, just not as much, I rarely learned covers. And I think there was just an innate sense in me of that music was already made. I don't want to remake it. And I think that was really good and kind of detrimental at the same time. But, you know, everything is a balance. But the problem that I have with drawing established characters from established properties is that their stories have already been told. And I kind of mentioned this a couple of seconds ago, but, you know, you're not adding on to the meaningful journey of the characters that you are drawing. And there are some people that do, like, fan animations of episodes or fan comics or whatever. And I think that does reach kind of a little bit of a different level from just general fan art, but just for the purposes of drawing a character you really like because you really like them, and, you know, whether you are copying a pose from the show or movie or whatever, or you are kind of doing maybe a generic using photo reference and trying to apply that. You know, fan art, Instagram is lousy with Batmans and Spider-Mans. I think Batman and Spider-Man are super duper cool. They are some of my favorite characters around, just because, I mean, who doesn't love Batman or Spider-Man or one of those characters? They've inspired a lot of imagination. But that's also kind of the exact reason why it doesn't appeal to me, and why I don't think it's necessarily super helpful to just draw a Batman or a Spider-Man. Everyone's doing it. Does it have meaning to you, aside from just being a thing that's what artists do online? And that really kind of gets down to the heart of it. Like, what is the meaning of, or the purpose of doing the fan art? If you're just doing it to have fun, then you've already won. Doing things to have fun is its own end, its own goal, totally cool. But I have trouble if I'm not telling a story with it that is, not unique. If it's already been told, then I'm just rehashing old ground. And that doesn't help me learn, doesn't help me grow necessarily, unless I'm doing a specific, master study. And the trick, I think, to enjoying doing fan art, if you're someone like me who has never really done fan art and you think you might like to try and branch into it, but you just can't really get into it, the trick is to put yourself in a position to do something new with those characters. Whether it is changing the design language for those characters, so Disney has a very specific style, putting those characters in a different context of a very different stylistic look could be a way to generate interest for you, especially if you have a really unique and bespoke style to your own work. I think that that's a good opportunity to say, I'm going to take this character that has never really been rendered in this way, and I want to try and render it in that way. Or you are implementing kind of a neat story twist. So in the mermaid video that I put out, that mermaid is intended to be kind of a scary, cabin in the woods style mermaid with the sharp teeth, the man-eater, the siren kind of look to it. And that was a fun twist, a fun satire that was not just redrawing the cover art, the cover pose of Ariel from The Little Mermaid. That wouldn't have held much meaning for me, wouldn't have helped me very much. Aside from doing an actual breakdown of the pose. Or the other thing you could do, and this kind of straddles that line, is to do a clever homage or a parody. So that illustration may not have had much story to it, but it was a twist. It was an homage, a parody of the original work. And that kind of gets down to the idea of being transformative. What is your specific reason for engaging in fan art, for drawing somebody else's character that they've already told the story for, that has already been drawn a million times by professional artists who were paid to realize the story for those characters? And again, there's nothing wrong with saying, I love this character, I want to pay homage to them, and especially as a learning exercise. But I think a lot of people get into the fan art trap where it is no, or should be no surprise that on Twitter and Instagram, fan art trades in high likes, high engagement. Lots of people will just see, that's a character that I like, I'm gonna go take a look at that post. That's a dangerous game to play, which I'll get into that in a second. But for me personally, I really had to appreciate fan art as a learning tool rather than just skipping to the stuff I wanted to do. Because I was kind of grossed out by the idea of, I'm just going to draw famous characters so that people will give my pictures likes or come check out my page or whatever it is. That I had a really strong aversion to that, because it wasn't my work, it wasn't my invention, those weren't my stories that I was telling. And definitely a harder road to choose to go down, for sure, because you're just putting obstacles in your way. You need to get people to care about the characters that you're making at the same time you're trying to get people to care about the drawings that you're making. And that's two hard jobs in one. But they are a useful learning tool when you are trying to break down, like I'm doing here, or I'm taking my own personal caricature where I've got long hair, a beard, and usually the mustache is a little bit longer than the beard, but, quarantine and all that. That is an interesting challenge that I have to meet those two drawings, those two styles in the middle, and make sure that it reads, make sure that it's something that when somebody looks at this piece, they know exactly what the intention was. The intention is that it's the genie, but it's me. And that's really good practice as an illustrator. You need things to be able to read immediately. You need people to be able to look at the drawing and say, yeah, I know exactly what they're going for, so that they can also get the joke. Specifically, I think it's important to choose characters that you think you have something to learn from. The Genie, if you didn't already know, was very much designed in the style of Al Hirschfeld, who's a very famous illustrator, who had really gorgeous line work, really smooth flowing lines, and was pretty phenomenal with caricature work. So that's an illustrator that I enjoy in his own right. And then the animator Eric Goldberg, who had to animate in Hirschfeld's style, more or less, and keep movement, alive in those drawings that are normally just still illustrations. That there was a lot of valuable learning material in that, and you can see it in the hands right here, where there's just a lot of curve into the fingers that are normally hard and rigid. That was great. I really had to work out from reference how that should look and how that should feel. But it wasn't until I really got an appreciation for the fact that that was a useful learning tool that I kind of gave into the idea of doing more of this. And there are some other people who are great illustrators that I'm friends with that have done fan art stuff in the past, and watching them do it, not even really talking to them about doing it, but watching them do it was what made me realize, wow, these guys are really having to apply a lot of what they've learned and what they know in order to get it right. And that's the personal benefit. That's the I'm doing this so that I can get better. The other piece of that, which I've mentioned before now, is fan art's really great for growing an audience. It just is. People are able to come in and engage with a character that they already know, they already love, and even if you are just doing a faithful rendition to the original source material, people will like it. People like the original source material the way that it was. So if you can do something that's faithful to that, then odds are people are going to like it just because you recreated the thing that they already liked. Now that can be hollow because it's not transformative. You're not putting your own stamp as an artist on it. You are really just executing what was already created. So if you get too stuck in just, I draw Spider-Man pictures, I draw Genie pictures, if you get too stuck in that, and all you do is draw Spider-Man pictures, Batman pictures, whatever, then that becomes all you really are. That's your entire value as an artist, is recreating things that have already been done. So you have to walk a line where the fan art is awesome, it's engaging with people who already like that stuff, and will hopefully engage with some of your other material and say, oh cool, this guy is really good at this thing, I wonder what else he does. Hopefully you can make that transition. Maybe it is tougher because you've been doing the fan art for so long that people aren't really interested in your personal creations, illustrations, original characters, whatever it might be. But that can be a hard pivot to make, and I think if you want to have longevity as an artist, you need to have people invested in your own creations, your own work. And that's primarily what I mean by don't do fan art. I think I see a lot of people who all they do is fan art. When I go check out their Instagram page, all I see is a bunch of fan art. They have one fandom that they really lean into, that they really like, and that's all they really do. And I think it's cool that they've gotten so good at that, and they clearly have built an audience around it. But when when the fandom kind of cools down on that one show, and it goes in cycles, Avatar The Last Airbender's coming around right now because it's getting re-released on Netflix. It's obviously experiencing a huge resurgence, but for a while there, I'm sure that there was a lot less engagement to go around for Avatar The Last Airbender illustrations. Just because there are the diehard fans that are still engaging with that all the time, but, you need to, at some point, transition to have people come to you for your stuff and not get stuck in that rut. And also just get into the habit of, if you're going to embark on anything, and not just fan art. If you're going to do anything, make sure that it's something that you can bring your own perspective to, your own value to. It's not super fun to be on a project where you're just there to be a cookie cutter, because you can execute a thing that any number of other artists could also execute as well or better. And I think that's a maturity thing for an artist, that you have to be able to find work that will be uniquely yours, that you will have your stamp on. And for me, the balance is coming from the other end. I look for stuff that is solely mine, and that makes it maybe a little alienating to people who don't really know or want to invest the time to get to know the work that I'm doing. And the great way to kind of bridge the gap on that is to hop in and just say, okay, cool, let me do something that you already know, but with my style, with my imagination involved in it. And that way there's a lot less of an ask to get people to engage with your work. I think it's important to understand, I'm not saying that fan art is bad. It can just be disingenuous if you are doing it just to get engagement, to get likes, to get fans. That's it's not doing art for you, and it's not doing your art any favors. And that is, it's going to limit you eventually, one way or the other. And that will lead to kind of a recurring, like just a cycle, a vicious cycle of constantly not taking projects that allow you to express your interests, your ideas, and what you want to do. Now, at the same time, this is a super great way, just fan art in general is a super great way to steal style from other artists, which is something that will come up in another video that I have coming up on the channel. But, you know, I think a lot of artists, especially early on, are really concerned with, how do I get a style? How do I establish myself with like a really cool visual element to my drawing, you know, something that's uniquely mine? And well, I think a lot of times that's premature. You're not really helping yourself asking those questions really early on into drawing and just learning fundamentals, right? At the same time, you can really just jump leap years ahead if you hop in, like I didn't do fan art. Because as you're drawing these pieces from other artists, it's like any study. I mean, painters do it, comic artists do it, illustrators do it, animators do it. Anytime that you're going in and you're just totally doing what another artist would do and you're trying to match that, then you're going to figure out, maybe not exactly how they did it in their studio at that time, but you're going to figure out, oh, that's how I can do a hand like so-and-so does a hand. That's how I can do such and such thing the way that such and such other artist does it. And that goes into your toolbox. That doesn't go away after you finish the drawing. That's there, which is awesome, because that means that you can do any number of other things and steal that one bit. You don't have to do the entire piece in that style to use that one piece that you learned, the way that they draw an eye or a hand or a nose or a leg or a foot, whatever. And that's super useful, because you will come back to that time and time again. And that's really the thing about fan art that I think was hard for me to learn to love. How do I make it so that it stays with me and it makes me a better artist? And once you can figure that out, I think you can come back to it and have a good relationship with fan art, like I struggled to do for such a long time. Still learning. So if you're doing just fan art right now, branch out. Do some of your own stuff. Make your own characters, make your own stories. But if you're like me, and you've been avoiding doing fan art, you're only doing your own characters, maybe give it a shot. Try it one of the ways that I mentioned in here, and see if that changes things for you. At any rate, this was super fun. I'm actually really fond of this piece and how it came out. If you enjoyed this video, once again, if you don't mind subscribing, it's a huge help to me, and you get to see more stuff like this, which hopefully you're enjoying. Let me know down in the comments if you are, and if you want to see another kind of fan art or drawing video. But at any rate, that's it for this one. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one.